Hi, you're listening to one of the books in the series 20-Minute Book Summaries by Poppy Finds on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts about this book, along with other book recommendations to add to this series.
Chapter 1. Buy One, Get Two Free. Tina Seelig kicks off the book with a punch of possibility. Right away, she throws the reader into a mindset shift. Life isn't about waiting for permission. It's about seizing opportunity, questioning assumptions, and creating value out of what seems like nothing. She introduces the kind of innovative thinking that doesn't just break the rules, it redefines the entire game. The chapter opens with a famous challenge Seelig gave her students at Stanford. She handed them each an envelope with $5 of seed funding and told them to make as much money as possible in 2 hours. But here's the catch. They weren't allowed to just spend the money. They had to use their creativity and entrepreneurial skills to generate value, and they only had 1 week to plan it. Most students initially focused on the $5, but the best teams realized the $5 wasn't the asset. The real asset was the 2 hours. The most successful teams didn't even use the $5. They realized that focusing on the money was a limitation, not a liberator. Some of the most profitable ideas included things like booking restaurant reservations during peak hours and selling them to walk-ins, or offering a bike tire check and pumping service around campus. One team even used their presentation time, instead of the challenge time, to sell ad space in their pitch and made hundreds of dollars just from thinking differently. The point? Constraints are not walls, they're springboards. The value isn't always in the obvious thing you're given, but in your ability to reframe the challenge and see what others don't. Seelig wraps the chapter by encouraging us to challenge assumptions and look for hidden assets in every situation. Whether it's time, attention, creativity, or social capital, the resources we have are often far more abundant than we think. She wants us to stop asking, "What am I allowed to do?" and start asking, "What's possible?" Chapter 2. Life doesn't come with instructions. In this chapter, Tina Seelig reminds us that life is messy, unpredictable, and doesn't come with a clear step-by-step guide. While many of us expect some sort of manual to follow, career plans, financial blueprints, and social guidelines, the truth is we have to make our own rules and constantly adapt. Seelig challenges us to embrace the ambiguity of life and take charge of our own narrative. Seelig kicks off with a reflection on the traditional approach to life. Follow the right path, get the right job, and everything will fall into place. But she quickly dismantles that idea. She shares stories from her own life and career, illustrating how things don't always work out as planned. Instead, success often comes from being able to pivot and adapt when things don't go as expected. She dives into the concept of opportunity recognition, teaching that real success is about identifying and seizing opportunities as they arise. Whether that's through the people you meet, the projects you take on, or the unpredictable twists in your career. She even encourages her readers to embrace the unknown and make decisions without having all the answers. She says, "There is no single answer to the question of how to build a successful life. The key is to explore, experiment, and take risks." This idea of experimenting with life comes with the freedom to fail and to learn from every misstep. Seelig then talks about how many of her students have started companies or careers, not because they followed a rigid plan, but because they saw opportunities in unexpected places. Instead of waiting for a perfect formula, they created their own path, even if it meant taking risks or failing in the process. Seelig concludes the chapter by stressing that life's uncertainties are the best parts of it. She encourages her readers to let go of the need for certainty and instead become comfortable with the unknown. It's the uncertainty and freedom that make the journey exciting and filled with possibility. She leaves us with this: your future is not determined by the path you take, but by your ability to adapt and create. Chapter 3: The Problem with Problems. In this chapter, Tina Seelig takes aim at the way we typically think about problems. She says the real issue isn't that we have problems, it's how we define them. Most of us see problems as roadblocks, things to avoid or minimize, but Seelig flips the script and argues that problems are gold mines of opportunity if you learn to frame them creatively. Seelig starts by explaining that we're often handed problems that are already prepackaged with assumptions. Think, how do I get a good grade in this class? Instead of, how do I learn something meaningful? She shows that the way a problem is framed influences how we solve it and what we think is even possible. She introduces the idea of reframing, and she gives examples of how students and entrepreneurs have succeeded not by solving the given problem, but by redefining what the real issue was. For instance, if someone is trying to make public transportation more efficient, the obvious angle might be adding more buses. But if you reframe the issue as, how can we make the wait more enjoyable? Swingingly, you're thinking in an entirely different and creative way. Then she drops this gem: every problem is an opportunity in disguise. It just depends on how you look at it. It's not just about solving problems, it's about learning to see them from a different angle. That's where the real breakthroughs happen. Seelig talks about how important it is to challenge the assumptions baked into problems. She encourages asking deeper questions and pushing boundaries. Instead of asking, how can I fix this broken system? Maybe the better question is, why does this system exist at all? Once you train yourself to rethink the framing, you become a better problem solver, innovator, and leader. She wraps by encouraging readers to see problems not as obstacles, but invitations. Invitations to innovate, to challenge old thinking, and to create something better. The people who make the biggest impact in the world aren't the ones who avoid problems. They're the ones who run toward them with better questions. Chapter 4: The Secret Sauce of Silicon Valley. This chapter digs into one of the biggest mindset shifts of all, realizing that many of the rules we live by are totally made up. Tina Seelig explains how true innovation happens when people challenge assumptions, question authority, and realize they don't need permission to make things happen. The message is clear: you can rewrite the rules if you're brave enough to stop playing by them. Seelig kicks off with a story about a student who asked if it was allowed to do something bold during a project. And that's when she realized how deeply conditioned we are to seek approval. From a young age, we're trained to raise our hands, wait our turn, follow instructions. But in the real world, that kind of rule following can limit creativity and impact. Then she hits us with one of her most quoted lines: if you're not breaking the rules, you're probably not doing anything special. She doesn't mean break legal rules or be reckless, but to question the invisible boundaries we accept without thinking. Most of the limits we believe are there are just habits, norms, or fear-based assumptions. She uses examples from Silicon Valley, the birthplace of companies that broke every rule in the book. Airbnb challenged the idea of needing hotels. Uber questioned traditional transportation. These companies weren't successful because they followed instructions. They were successful because they redefined the game entirely. She also encourages people to stop asking for permission, especially when you have a smart idea or feel strongly about doing something meaningful. The difference between those who make waves and those who don't often comes down to taking initiative instead of waiting for a green light. Seelig closes by urging readers to step into a rule-breaking mindset, not to cause chaos, but to create possibility. The key takeaway is that the most impactful paths are rarely found on the map someone else drew. If you want to make your mark, you need to stop assuming you need permission and start acting like you have agency. You have more power than you think, and the only real rules are the ones you choose to believe. Chapter 5, Turn Lemonade into Helicopters. In this chapter, Tina Seelig takes the classic idea of turning lemons into lemonade and cranks it way up. She challenges us not to just make the best of a bad situation, but to flip failures into opportunities so big they completely change the game. It's not just about recovery, it's about reinvention. Seelig begins by talking about how we often treat failure like it's the end of the road. But what if, instead of hiding from it, we used it as fuel to build something even better? She gives examples of entrepreneurs and students who faced setbacks, rejections, broken plans, total flops, and instead of giving up, they asked smarter questions, took new paths, and came out stronger. Here's the quote that anchors the whole chapter. When everything goes wrong, it's the perfect time to make something go right. Failure, in Selig's eyes, isn't a red light. It's a detour sign, maybe even an upgrade. She talks about how some of the most successful ideas in business and life came from something going wrong: a lost job, a rejected pitch, a failed product. These moments don't end your story, they rewrite it. She also brings in a powerful mindset shift. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What can I do because this happened?" This question reframes the situation and puts you back in control. She shares a story about a student whose business idea tanked. But instead of scrapping it, they pivoted the entire concept and found success in a completely different area. Tina wraps up by saying that resilience isn't about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. The people who thrive aren't the ones who never fail, but the ones who see failure as data, as a launch pad, as a hidden door to something better. If you can learn to spot the value in every setback, you're unstoppable. Sometimes you don't just make lemonade, you make helicopters. Chapter 6, Work the System. This chapter is all about understanding how the world around you works, then using it to your advantage. Tina Seelig shows that the systems we live in, like schools, companies, social networks, aren't just static structures, they're tools. And if you know how to work the system instead of letting it work you can create opportunities that most people don't even realize exist. Seelig opens by pointing out that most people treat institutions and systems like they're fixed, immovable things. But the truth is, every system has gaps, openings, and even loopholes, and the people who recognize them can use those spaces to innovate, lead, and get ahead. She shares examples of students who took full advantage of their environments by using available resources creatively, from finding hidden funding for projects to connecting with mentors they technically weren't supposed to have access to. One student even used the university's own rules to start a business on campus. You don't need to wait for someone to hand you power. Often it's already sitting there. You just have to pick it up. Seelig explains that working the system doesn't mean cheating. It means understanding the structure deeply enough that you can move through it with agility and strategy. Think, reading between the lines, questioning restrictions, and finding ways to use what's already in front of you in smarter ways. She also touches on how important it is to build relationships across systems. That means talking to people in different departments, industries, or roles, and discovering insights and opportunities you'd never find by staying in your own lane. Seelig closes the chapter by emphasizing that your environment is full of hidden assets. You just need to learn to see and use them. Whether it's tapping into a network, spotting an outdated policy you can challenge, or leveraging overlooked resources, working the system is a skill that can give you a massive edge. The world is filled with tools, rules, and resources. You just have to know how to use them. Chapter 7, The Art of Luck. In this chapter, Tina Seelig dives into a fascinating topic: luck. Most people treat luck like it's completely random, like you either have it or you don't. But Seelig flips that idea on its head. She believes that luck is a skill, and even better, it's a skill you can build. The more open, engaged, and curious you are, the more you attract lucky opportunities. Seelig begins by breaking down the difference between passive luck, like winning the lottery, and active luck, the kind that comes from your actions, mindset, and behavior. She shares stories of people who seemed lucky from the outside, but were actually just masters at putting themselves in the right place with the right energy again and again. She gives examples like students who stumbled into dream jobs or business connections, not by chance, but by showing up, asking questions, and saying yes to unexpected opportunities. One student got a job offer just by being curious and striking up a conversation at a guest lecture. Here's the quote that captures the vibe of this whole chapter: "Lucky people don't just stumble into good situations, they create them." She also talks about how small decisions, like going to an event, emailing someone, or sharing an idea, can open doors you never saw coming. And even so-called bad luck can lead to great outcomes if you're flexible and open-minded. It's about seeing every moment as a chance to expand your network, gain knowledge, or shift directions. Seelig wraps up with a powerful message: you can train yourself to be luckier, be more observant, be more generous, be more curious. The world is full of invisible doors, and the more active you are, the more likely you are to walk through one that changes everything. Luck isn't magic, it's motion. Chapter 8: The Entrepreneurial Mindset. This chapter dives into one of the core themes of the entire book. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a company, it's a mindset. Tina Seelig wants you to see yourself as the CEO of your own life. You don't need a business plan or investors to think like an entrepreneur. What you need is the courage to act, to experiment, and to shape your own path instead of following someone else's. Seelig explains that entrepreneurial thinking is about spotting opportunities, acting on them quickly, and adapting as you go. She pushes back against the idea that entrepreneurs are some rare, special type of person. In her view, anyone can develop this mindset. It's about behavior, not identity. She shares examples of students who applied entrepreneurial thinking in unexpected ways, like solving campus problems, launching social initiatives, or creating career paths from scratch. What set them apart wasn't funding or experience, but initiative, resourcefulness, and resilience. A key quote lands right in the middle: entrepreneurs don't wait for instructions, they write their own. She also talks about how failure fits into this mindset. Instead of fearing it, entrepreneurs use it as feedback. They try, learn, adjust, and try again. That cycle of iteration, test, fail, tweak, test again, is how they build something real. And Seelig emphasizes something important: this mindset applies to everything. Whether you're planning a career, writing a book, building a community, or just navigating life, you can think like an entrepreneur. That means asking, what can I do with what I've got, instead of what should I do? She closes by reminding us that we're all creators of our own experience. No one is going to hand us the blueprint. We have to build it. The entrepreneurial mindset isn't about launching a startup. It's about being bold, curious, and proactive every day. You already have all the tools you need. The real question is, will you use them? Chapter 9: No Regrets. This chapter hits deep. Tina Seelig zooms in on decision-making, especially the tough, scary, high-stakes kind. She explores how the fear of regret holds many people back from taking bold action. But instead of focusing on playing it safe, She encourages us to make choices based on growth, curiosity, and courage, not fear or what ifs. Seelig opens by talking about how so many of her students and adults wrestle with big life decisions. Should I switch careers, start this project, move to a new city? At the heart of the hesitation is a fear of regret, of making the wrong move. But she argues that most regrets come not from taking a risk and failing, but from not trying at all. She shares real life stories of people who took leaps. Some worked out, some didn't. But even when they failed, they grew. They got smarter, tougher, and more self aware. And often those failures led to unexpected breakthroughs down the road. One quote sums it up perfectly: inaction is the biggest risk of all. She encourages readers to shift their mindset. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What could I learn?" Or, "What might I miss if I don't try?" By reframing risk as a form of education, you start to see every choice as an opportunity, not just a gamble. Seelig also talks about the idea of reversible versus irreversible decisions. Many of the choices we stress over aren't final. You can course correct. You can pivot. Realizing that most decisions aren't permanent gives you the freedom to move forward without being paralyzed by fear. She closes with a bold reminder: living without regret means living with intention. You don't have to be reckless, but you do have to be willing to try, to fail, and to learn. The people who live the most satisfying lives aren't the ones who played it safe. They're the ones who took the leap when it counted. The best way to predict the future is to create it, one brave decision at a time. Chapter 10. This is your turn. In this last chapter, Tina Seelig pulls everything together with a clear message. Your life is your responsibility and your opportunity. You don't need to wait for someone to give you permission, hand you a plan, or set you on your path. This is your turn. The world is wide open if you're willing to step up and claim your place in it. Seelig reflects on many of the lessons from the book: questioning assumptions, reframing problems, embracing failure, leveraging your environment, and creating your own luck. But now she adds one more layer: ownership. It's not enough to understand these ideas. You have to actually live them. She reminds readers that there's no one right way to build a successful or meaningful life. You get to decide what success looks like for you. That might mean launching a startup, teaching, traveling the world, raising a family, or inventing something new. The key is to approach life as a creator, not a consumer. This quote hits right at the heart. You are not a passenger on this journey. You are the driver. Seelig urges everyone, especially those just starting out, to be bold and intentional. Take small risks. Make big moves. Don't just follow the path someone else laid out. And don't wait until you feel ready, because you'll never feel 100% ready. The most important thing is to start. She also shares one last reminder: your actions ripple out. When you take initiative, solve problems, and lead with creativity, you inspire others to do the same. This isn't just about your life, it's about your impact. The book ends with an energizing call. This is your turn to take the tools, stories, and ideas you've been given and do something amazing. You have everything you need to shape a life that excites and challenges you. Your life isn't a rehearsal, it's the real thing. So get out there and make it count.